This time had to come. In this, the opening statement, attention now passed to the judge. So I ask you this, Supreme Court of Justice, Judge, do you solemnly swear to Almighty God, Creator of heaven and earth, that you will stand by our Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms and its Canadian Constitution and use it to bring justice by its fairness, as apologies, reimbursements, reparations, fiduciary, and incivility, as peace is needed, as a payment of respect in the case of defending your home and protecting your family? That, by your sworn duties, these provisions of honest evidence, not that made of fiction, are to be of true force and effect. Is that an agreement? Because I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God. Because truth is my sword, and karma is my shield. When love conquers all.
So, Judge, why I called this together to bring into question of my concerns over the regarding statements which I am about to address is that they are all tied in. And as I have promised you the whole truth and nothing but the truth, means giving you the full truth and nothing but the truth. It shows the tie-in of everything that needs to be addressed, because one thing supports another, another thing affects another, and another thing is overall tied in because of the same thing that's being addressed. Because, speaking as a couple, the both of us have never had our chance at fair trial or had our side really acknowledged, accepted, or understood. And now it's about time that we are given the chance to be able to defend ourselves. And I myself, standing up for myself and my partner, who momentarily cannot speak for herself, as I defend our home and family. So when I bring these issues I address today to you, my judge, my jury, to use the highest authority of kindness in respect to the application of the force and effect that will be applied, because as bad as the things I describe, they may seem so horrific that it would lead to an execution or life sentencing or just vaporization, ablation. Instead, as I said, we are not to become the demon by killing the demon and be as bad as the criminals that we are dealing with. So I request that you, Judge, please do the things that I cannot do myself as a person, but because you, my Judge, are going to be presented the things that I have proven to myself, and by revealing to you, I show you what it is exactly that I mean. As these things I present have proven to me to be very, very inconsistent with the provisions of our Constitution, Charter of Freedoms and Rights, inalienable rights of our universal Charter of Human Rights and Freedoms, that we all here in this world are provided and deserve. Even the animals have rights.
Because of the two major issues I find to be very concerning that I present here, because two major issues have factors that interplay between each other, making a causation of a duality of problem, which in this court we should be able to address. And if not all here, we'll have two courts running with the same thing, because the whole truth includes it being all of the truth, not just talking about one little part here. But if we're going to start at any point, it would be the day that I'd gotten the notice to relative that my sweet common law loving partner, Alice Jane Burton, had been detained at RCH. Right at that point, that means the doctors and nurses, they should have been talking to me. They should have been letting me know how it's going, because I've been quite concerned about her medication that they're forcing on her non-consensually, as is involuntary. Happens to be clozapine. Now, clozapine, if you haven't heard anything about clozapine, it's been banned in Europe since 1970, killed way too many patients. And after all, if you remember anything about the Nuremberg Codex, I believe in Europe it's Nuremberger, but we know it as the Nuremberg Codex. And it clearly states that a patient is, or experiment, living human experiment, let's call it, because you never know what the outcome of these treatments are. That's what makes psychiatry always a experimental practice. And if the experimentalness of it has ever been removed, then the medicine itself is still. And if you guys all know that these anticholinergics are murder, then still that would go against the Nuremberg Codex as well, because a patient is not to be harmed. And when we're talking about the use of anticholinergics, an anticholinergic happens to be an antipsychotic, or an antidepressant, or an anticonvulsant, an antidepressant, or an anti-Parkinson's, an antihistamine. There's plenty of opioids, opiates. Like it causes delirium because when it causes hallucinations and the disorganized thinking, the things that you call schizophrenia, when it's actually medication induced, because it rips out your nervous system by cutting off the vitamin uptake, and that cuts off your immune system too, because the two are tied in together through an endocrine system of our blood and hormone messengers. So when we're talking about the stage before, enterocrites, then we're talking about our immune system, our lymphocytes and our neutrophils and such, the white blood cells that carry our sodium reactions with the calcium and sodium. Anticholinergics essentially cut off the uptake of our vitamin B. So what ends up happening is, if you ever heard of vitamin deficiency describing scurvy or anemia, well, essentially this is the reason why, okay? In the case of clozapine, which is an anticholinergic, it cuts off your vitamin uptake, causing a granulocytosis. That means a compromised immune system, which has been described to many as HIV/AIDS. Now, if these signs point to that the lymphopenia that leads to cancer because of the stopping of an immune system, meaning a compromised immune system, that the only way that people get cancer is that they already are experiencing HIV/AIDS because it's a compromised immune system after all. Then we are taking a look at the practice of these anticholinergics a little bit more seriously, I hope. If they were only designed to create an industry, then that means that the greater public has been enslaved to death. And that would outline problems dating all the way back to the war and that Nuremberg trial. We get the Nuremberg Codex, and where patients are not to be harmed. And that is a fact. And when it comes to involuntary, didn't Abraham Lincoln already free the slaves? Didn't we already have a British end slavery in 1833? Didn't we just have a Supply Chains Act put in place in 2024? So involuntary, that means to anyone, it means slavery. And as I just described what euthanasia is, especially when all of the cancer service, cancer foundations, all of that, all of the AIDS foundations, all that money-grubbing foundations that take charity money and all that away from the people that need it to live or to be able to survive in this world. There are people dying on the street, and the streets are definitely a death sentence. As I pointed out, that when we talk about anticholinergics, that includes opiates and opioids. So why would anyone force an opiate addiction on someone involuntary, especially so non-consensual? We only define non-consensual and rape to be tied in, because that's exactly how you define what rape is. And when we're talking about involuntary, being just what nobody wants. If anybody wanted it, it'd be voluntary to them, and it wouldn't be involuntary anymore. So involuntary sticks to as being just that nobody wants it. That would mean that it goes against every single provision of our constitutional rights and amendments in the United States and our Canadian Constitution in our Canadian Charter of Human Rights and Freedoms, which are the laws that preside over all other laws all across this land and all across the world when we look at the Universal Charter of Human Rights and Freedoms and our inalienable rights.